Hello and welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Here's a quick look at what's lined up for you on the show tonight. Today marked a new chapter in India's space journey as the country launched the historic Chandrayaan-3 lunar mission. This is a crucial milestone in India's journey, and the success of this mission would seal India's place further as a leading space power. Tonight, we tell you all about India's lunar mission, how the Indian Space Agency is being lauded around the world, and why this mission has far-reaching implications for India's position on the global stage. Also on the show for you tonight, where is the Wagner chief? That mystery continues. Statements that have been coming in from the United States only adding to the doubts. After a series of air disasters in Nepal, have no lessons been learned? We tell you how the country's latest move might be too little, too late. It's been the deadliest 6 months this year for the United States. Mass killings numbers since the year 2006. We get to the bigger picture. Why are there not enough women in STEM fields around the world? We discuss. It is the 14th of July 2023 and India is on its way to the moon. Chandrayaan-3 has blasted off from India's Satish Dhawan Space Center in Andhra Pradesh.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Plus 5 seconds.
Lift-off normal.
Here we have a majestic lift-off of LBM-3M4 rocket carrying India's prestigious Chandrayaan-3 spacecraft.
P2 tracking.
Like the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi rightly said, it is a new chapter in India's space odyssey. And this chapter, by the way, has been in the making for decades. The story begins in the early 1960s. Indian physicist Vikram Sarabhai was looking for an ideal place to launch a rocket, a place that would be on Earth's magnetic equator, and the compass led Sarabhai to a church in a small fishing village called Thumba. But how do you launch a rocket from a church without first bringing it down? Sarabhai went to the bishop, who in turn told the scientists to attend the Sunday Mass, where the proposal will be laid for acquiring the church. And that Sunday, the bishop asked the churchgoers, I'm quoting, "Children, can we give up God's abode for a scientific mission?" "Amen," replied the congregation. Does that sound too filmy to be true? Except it is neither fiction nor a line from a commercially successful sci-fi movie. This is the story of India's space journey. One that famously features a bullock cart. This one. On the cart is Apple, India's first geostationary experimental communication satellite project. It was launched from French Guiana in 1981. And here, the satellite's antenna is being tested on a bullock cart. Why is that? Because to test the antenna, the structure had to be placed under a thermal blanket. And ISRO, by the way, did not have one. Back then, and we are talking about 4 decades ago. Also, sending the satellite abroad for the final test would add to the expense. And so a bullock cart was hired for 150 rupees. It provided a non-magnetic environment. Also, it allowed the scientists to transport the satellite to an open field for the necessary tests. This frugality has been ingrained in India's space missions. And this is what makes India's space missions so special. India has sent the most economical mission to the moon. We are talking about Mangalyaan. In the year 2019, India sent its second lunar mission, Chandrayaan-3. The mission cost $123 million. It was cheaper than the production cost of Hollywood space movie Interstellar, for which the maker spent upwards of $165 million. Chandrayaan-2 could not reach its destination and the heartbreak is still fresh. But that did not stop India from launching another lunar mission. Well before Chandrayaan-3 countdown started, ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization, conducted a launch rehearsal simulating the entire preparation. And the man overseeing it all was S. Somnath, the ISRO chairman. Born in a small village in Kerala, Somnath grew up with a habit of visiting temples, a habit that has over the years remained independent of his stellar career in science. And those who know Somnath were not surprised when he decided to visit the revered Tirupati temple with a miniature model of Chandrayaan-3 a day before the lift-off. Also feeling the jitters was S. Unikrishnan Nair, the director of VSSC, or Vikram Sarabhai Space Center. It was Nair's team that developed the launch vehicle Mark III. And before the liftoff, Nair could be heard saying that the success rate of his launch vehicle is 100%. A countdown and a skip in the heartbeat later, when Chandrayaan-3 finally blasted off, Indians around the world watched history unfold in front of their eyes with chills and goosebumps.
Plus 5 seconds.
Liftoff normal.
Here we have a majestic liftoff of LVM-3 M4 rocket carrying India's prestigious Chandrayaan-3 spacecraft.
P2 tracking.
प्रज्वलन और सफलतापूर्ण उत्थापन LVM-3 M4.
The liftoff was a reminder of how far India has come in just a matter of decades. We have gone to the moon, we've gone to the Mars, we have launched satellites for other countries. And now we are dreaming bigger. Chandrayaan-3 aims to touch down on the 23rd of August. And in these 40 days, it would have traveled over 3.8 lakh kilometers. The mission's lander has been named Vikram, and riding on Vikram are the hopes and dreams of 1.4 billion Indians. So far, only 3 countries, by the way, have been able to carry out a soft landing on the moon: the United States, former Soviet Union, and China. And India wants more than just the 4th place. India wants to become the first country to land near the moon's south pole. This area is yet to be properly explored and it remains in the shadow. Could India be the country that finds life outside planet Earth? That said, the risk of landing in the south is much, much higher. But is India afraid of failure? Look at the faces of the scientists behind Chandrayaan-3 and you will find your answer. And as India aims for the moon, here's what else is happening. Take a look at these visuals. What you just saw on your screen was India's national capital region. There is an extreme flood alert in central Delhi. Earlier in the week, River Yamuna flowed above the warning level for several hours. And last night, it reached an all-time high of 208.6 meters. And the water has now started to recede, but several key areas of Delhi remain flooded. Indraprastha water regulator has been damaged. The floods reached India's apex court. Areas in ITO and Rajghat are submerged. River Yamuna also reached northern walls of the Red Fort, the water from the river. Drinking water and power cuts are expected in some parts of the capital. The government offices, schools, colleges will be closed till Sunday. Heavy goods vehicles have been barred from entering the city, except those carrying essential items. 3 water treatment plants in Delhi were shut off yesterday as the water overflowed into their pump rooms. Neighbouring Noida also came to a standstill. Rural areas were grossly impacted. As of yesterday, around 40 people were trapped in the floodwater. Rescue operations were underway. But it's not just the shanties that were affected. Water also hit gated colonies in urban parts of the city. Delhi may seem some relief. Starting today, Noida will have to wait a little while longer. But why is this even happening? Is it because of the monsoon? To some extent, yes. It has been raining heavily in the hilly northern states of India, and due to an overflow, the Hatnikund barrage of Haryana released water into Yamuna. The after effects were apparent in Delhi. But the rain or the barrage are not the only culprits. There's more to this. In the last 4 days, there has been little to no rain in Delhi, but the level of the river, Yamuna, has been rising. The peak level of water released from the Hatnikund barrage is some 3.6 lakh cusecs this year, but the data shows that this figure has been much higher in previous years. 8.2 lakhs cusecs of water was released from the barrage 2019. In the year 2013, the figure stood at 8 lakh cusecs, but the flood situation was not as bad then as it is this time around. In fact, in the year 2013, the level of the Yamuna rose to 207.5 meters. In the year 2019, it rose to a little over 206 meters. And now, in 2023, in less than half the water released as compared to the other years, the water in Yamuna reached a record high level. But why is this happening? Is it because of infrastructure, poor management and planning perhaps? There are a number of factors at play here. First of all, there has been heavy rain in upper Yamuna basin. Then it is the state of the Yamuna itself. There is encroachment on the floodplain, on the wetlands, and little has been done to remove them. Garbage has been dumped on the floodplain like anything. There is excessive deposition of silt. But most importantly, it is the infrastructure. Yamuna runs for 22 kilometers in Delhi, and over that stretch, there are 25 bridges, some open to traffic, some under construction. If you are traveling along Yamuna, you will see a bridge in every 800 meters, and the width of the river has been significantly reduced. And then there is no soil to soak the water, leading to surface runoffs. Stormwater drains are also failing to discharge excessive water. Of course, the Yamuna is flooding. Given the situation, what else can you expect, really? And it happens every year. Like I told you, it's a happy day for Indians. India's lunar spacecraft has taken off successfully. Indians around the world are proud. It is good to reach for the stars, or the moon in this case. But what about what's happening on the ground? India needs to do something about that as well. Our next story is about Joe Biden. His critics are saying that he is shielding his son. From what, though? A host of probes and investigations. And the first one concerns the discovery of cocaine in the White House. That's right. Earlier this month, a white powdery substance was discovered in the West Wing of the White House. We told you about this. Authorities confirmed it to be cocaine. But they said that they had no idea who brought the drug into the building. And a week on, the US Secret Service has ended its investigation into the matter, but without identifying a suspect. That's right. They say they have no idea how the cocaine ended up at the White House. It says there's no video, no fingerprints, or no DNA available to identify a suspect. Now, for the unversed, we are talking about one of the most secure buildings on this planet. Every inch of its perimeter is surrounded by infrared lasers, cameras, Secret Service officials. The security shield blankets everything from the sky to the surface to even underground areas. And yet, the officials cannot seem to find out how a packet of cocaine ended up entering the building. Biden's critics are calling it hogwash. They say that this could be an attempt to protect his son. I repeat, the Republicans say the packet could have been his son's, Hunter Biden, who is a recovering drug addict. Over the past 2 decades, he has been in and out of rehabilitation. And the Republicans now say he is back to doing the drug. And they are hinting that the cocaine packet could have belonged to him. And they want him to undergo a drug test. Last we checked, the White House had not commented on the matter. Interestingly, this is not the only controversy surrounding Hunter Biden. On your screen now is a picture of Gal Luft. He is the co-director of a Maryland-based research group which claims to have damaging information about Hunter Biden. Information about his transactions with a Chinese energy conglomerate. He claims to have shared his allegations with the FBI and the US Department of Justice in March 2019. But he said that both did not act and instead covered up the information. And why am I telling you about him? Because this man has just been charged for being a Chinese agent. He has been handed down an indictment and accused of multiple serious criminal schemes. And the Republicans, by the way, say this is another attempt at protecting Hunter Biden. And it does not even end there. In June, a whistleblower from the IRS, America's Internal Revenue Service, had alleged that the president's son received preferential treatment into an investigation over tax-related misdemeanors. And he also said that the case could have resulted in the implication of Joe Biden as well. But officials at the top laid several roadblocks into the investigation, even when Donald Trump was the president. Now, these were just a few examples. There are many more out there, many more cases, many more allegations. And I'm not saying they are correct, but critics are of the opinion that there can be no smoke without fire. Do American authorities really go soft on Hunter Biden in the many cases that he faces? And if yes, then why? There are no easy answers to these questions, just speculation, which only seems to be growing with each passing day. If you are a fan of soft drinks and diet sodas, I've got some news for you. One of the world's most popular sweeteners, aspartame, which is used to make these drinks, has been labeled as a possible carcinogen. Well, a carcinogen is any substance that has the capability of causing cancer. The WHO says aspartame is one. How will this have an impact on the food and beverages industry? Our next report telling you.
It's one of the world's most popular sweeteners. From soft drinks to diet sodas to chewing gums. It's used in endless products. But does it also pose a real-life risk? Yes, says the WHO. The global health body has labeled aspartame as a possible carcinogen, meaning it is capable of causing cancer in the human body.
So the working group classified aspartame as possibly carcinogenic to humans, that is group 2B, based on limited evidence for cancer in humans. This was specifically for hepatocellular carcinoma, which is a type of liver cancer.
The findings are striking. They could spell trouble for a host of brands. To allay their fears, the WHO has said that although the sweetener can be hazardous, but it remains safe to be consumed in small quantities.
the conclusion of this assessment are not indicating that consuming products containing sweeteners automatically lead to a health impact. Having an acceptable daily intake, it means it is acceptable to consume a certain amount of aspartame without having appreciable health effects.
The rulings are the outcome of two separate WHO expert panels, one of which flags whether there is any evidence that a substance is a potential hazard, and the other which assesses how much of a real-life risk that substance actually poses. Some disagree with the findings of both. This includes scientists not associated with the reviews. They say the evidence linking aspartame to cancer is weak. Food and Beverage Industry Association said the decisions showed aspartame was safe and a good option for people wanting to reduce sugar in their diets. Critics say they're doing this to protect their business. No one knows, but experts say the WHO study is going to have little to no impact on policies in the Western world.
Aspartame is very, very widely used in both foods and drinks. Given that the International Agency is going to say it's a possible human carcinogen, but the Joint Expert Committee on Food Additives is probably just going to reiterate the status quo. I am not expecting abrupt policy changes to come from the USA, the European Union, the United Kingdom, or many other jurisdictions. That would be interesting to see.
So what does one do? Who does one believe? Well, try going by the old saying, anything in excess is harmful. Perhaps that is the lesson to take from this story. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Where is the Wagner chief? I'm talking about Yevgeny Prigozhin. He used to be a regular on television screens, but where is he now? Is he in jail? Some say the Wagner chief could be dead. While that's a stretch, the fact remains that this man is missing. Prigozhin has not been seen in public for a while now, and that is very, very unusual. Just think about it. All of the 7+ months that Wagner mercenaries fought in Bakhmut, the Wagner chief would not miss any opportunity to record a video message. He would send politically charged messages from the battlefield, claiming victory, slamming the Russian Defense Ministry, even calling the defense minister names. And now, all of a sudden, there is radio silence. The Wagner chief seems to have disappeared from the face of the planet. So where exactly is Yevgeny Prigozhin, the man who used to be Putin's chef? A retired US General Robert Abrams has told a local news outlet now that Wagner could be very well dead. If not, he could be in one of the many Russian prisons. There is no way of verifying either, and the Kremlin is not saying much. Remember, the Wagner chief was a close ally of Vladimir Putin, so much so that he operated in multiple countries with the Russian president's blessings and in Russia's interest. I'm talking about the likes of Mali, Sudan, Libya, Syria. But all of the history and the proximity to power, when Wagner asked his troops, the Wagner chief asked his troops to march towards Moscow, soon Wagner troops in Syria were allegedly arrested. Media outlets linked to the Wagner group were blocked. Putin's men raided the Wagner chief's house in St. Petersburg. Money was seized, weapons were grabbed, and so was a collection of disguises, which he may have previously used during covert missions or had plans of using in the future. What about his present? Where is the Wagner chief? The Kremlin claims that Putin met with Prigozhin 5 days after that failed mutiny. And again, there is no way of verifying this. Around the same time, the Wagner chief's private jet landed in Belarus only to fly back to Russia. And when the mutiny failed, the Wagner group struck a deal with Russia. And the Wagner chief was offered a safe haven in Belarus. Amnesty was offered to him and his troops. His troops were also given the option of joining the Russian military. How many fighters took up that offer? No one knows. But what was reported was unusual activities at a certain deserted military camp in Belarus. The word was that Wagner chief was moving his base, starting a training camp in Belarus. But then a week ago, Belarus's president Alexander Lukashenko had said that Wagner, the chief, is not in Belarus, but very much still in Russia. Where in Russia, though, is the immediate question. He is in St. Petersburg, quote unquote. Perhaps he went to Moscow. That is what Alexander Lukashenko said. Adding, what will happen to him next? Strange things happen in life, but if you think Putin is so malicious and vindictive that he will wipe him out tomorrow, to say it in Russian, no, this will not happen, quote unquote. So who is having the last laugh in all of this? Not Putin, but Russia's defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, and the Russian defense establishment at large. Wagner had become a threat to their existence. The Wagner chief's victory in Bakhmut empowered him to openly take on the defense minister. On the 24th of June, Prigozhin claimed that his men had taken control of all of Russia's military sites in Rostov-on-Don. The Wagner chief accused the Russian military of killing his forces, and he vowed to take revenge. And soon, videos surfaced showing armed men on the streets of Rostov, so much so that he asked his men to march towards Moscow. Wagner troops were shooting down Russian planes from the sky. Many said the Wagner chief would only stop after unseating Shoigu. And some said the man is a threat to Shoigu's life and the mutiny to Putin's hold on power. All of this was a royal embarrassment for Russia, and which is why we repeatedly kept telling you that it is somehow hard to believe that after all that the Wagner chief has done, Russia is willing to offer him amnesty, a safe haven in Belarus. Somehow this mystery around the Wagner chief's disappearance appears to make more sense. A few days ago, I told you about the helicopter crash in Nepal. 6 people had lost their lives. 5 of them were international tourists. We also questioned what the Nepalese government was doing about this, other than expressing grief and launching an investigation. And today there is an answer, but we are not convinced. Nepal has banned all non-essential flights for the next 2 months. Helicopter rides to mountains, external load operations, flower showers by helicopters have been suspended in the country till September. My question is, why only 2 months? Does the Nepalese aviation think that it will fix all these problems in 60 days? We have told you this. The skies of Nepal are the most dangerous. The country is home to 14 tallest mountain peaks, including Mount Everest. And these peaks are often shrouded in clouds. Airlines fly to small airports in remote hills that are difficult to maneuver. And seeing Nepal's history of air crashes, 69 in 68 years, it sure lacks appropriate safety measures. Is this a problem that can be tackled till September? Will the Nepalese aviation upgrade to modern radars and security systems? Will it train its pilots better in just 2 months? We are failing to see the significance, because Nepal has some big problems that only a blanket ban could possibly fix. So is the move simply an eyewash? You see, from June to September, it is monsoon season in Nepal. Peaks are blanketed in clouds more than ever. Rainfall is heavy. Landslides are frequent. There is low visibility and high chances of disasters. If Nepal is waiting for the rains to pass to resume flights, then it might be diluted. Because monsoon is not the culprit. If anything, it might be a scapegoat. Why did the Civil Aviation Authority of Nepal wait till mid-July? The monsoon season started in June. Was it waiting for the crash? Why the delay? What Nepal needs to understand is it's not okay to continue flights with poor safety, with outdated radars, with difficult to reach airstrips. We get it. Nepal has a notorious topography. It's not easy to venture into its sky, and that leaves the country with two options. Either to pull up its socks and amp up its air safety, or stop flying. It might sound far-fetched to you, but have a look at the facts. Nepal has poor air safety and aircraft standards. The aviation sector is also plagued by insufficient training and maintenance. The European Union bans all Nepali carriers from its airspace over safety concerns. The mountain peaks in Nepal may be hazardous, but they are also beautiful. And the country has been getting in dollars thanks to these peaks. Some 600,000 foreign tourists visited Nepal last year. This year, Nepal issued 454 permits to climb Mount Everest in the spring season alone. Each of those climbers needed to be accompanied by a Nepali guide. And this means more than 900 people were atop the world's highest mountain peak. The government charges $11,000 per foreign climber. It made $4.8 million from the Everest permits this year. And as Nepal pocketed those bucks, it seems to have entirely ignored how people have died on Everest due to overcrowding in the last few climbing seasons. And those who cannot climb the Everest make the blunder of boarding a Nepalese helicopter to see it. The view may be breathtaking, but the flight could be life-threatening. Be it Everest or sightseeing flights, Nepal has not, it seems, learned from its mistakes. Its civil helicopters are among the busiest in the world. Operators log in thousands of hours under the most demanding of conditions. But of what use is that if people boarding these helicopters will be risking their lives? And for more on this, our correspondent Saloni Murarka getting us this report.
Following the helicopter crash that killed all 6 people on board, including 5 tourists, Nepal Civil Aviation Authority has now rolled out new helicopter safety regulations across the country, which includes that all the helicopter will now only be operating from airfields and not from helipads or open ground from now on, and non-essential helicopter services has been banned till September this year. Even though the investigation to know the cause of the crash is already underway, the former director of the Civil Aviation Authority has said that unpredictable weather condition of that region and the monsoon is the major reason of the crash. Nepal witnesses its monsoon from June to September and it's already underway. And as per the Civil Aviation Authority, Nepal has seen 4 helicopter crashes in 2023 alone. Saloni Murarka for WION World is One in Kathmandu, Nepal.
And let's now shift our focus to the United States, a country which champions the causes of human rights. Yet, ironically, it fails to ensure the basic right to life. Let's talk about one of its grimmest milestones. The United States is now marking 28 mass killings, 140 victims of gun violence. It has been the deadliest 6 months for America in years. Our next report getting you the complete story.
Killed by hands of strangers or gunned by loved ones in small towns, big cities or their homes, the country which has a history of gun violence recorded its deadliest 6 months of mass killings. 28 people were killed from 1st January to 30th of June, higher than 2022, which recorded 27 killings in the second half. Why is this happening in the United States, and what is the reason behind mass killings? A mass killing is defined when 4 or more people are slain within a 24-hour period, not including the assailant. Experts have attributed the rising bloodshed to a growing population with an increased number of guns in the United States. Mass killings represent a fraction of the country's overall gun violence. On March 27th, a Nashville school shooting case in Tennessee, a former school student armed with 2 pistols and a rifle fired around 150 shots, killing 3 9-year-old children and 3 staff members before being gunned down. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee, a Republican, had urged the General Assembly to pass a legislation keeping firearms away from people who could harm themselves. But the legislature was adjourned this year without taking on gun control. This prompted Bill Lee to schedule a special session for August. Despite the bloodshed, the National Rifle Association maintains fierce opposition to regulating firearms. It claims that Biden's efforts to gut the Second Amendment will not usher in safety, but only embolden criminals. And that is why they are continuing the fight for self-defense laws and championing rights of law-abiding Americans. On 10th December this year, the world will celebrate 75 years since the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a roadmap for peaceful and decent societies. But the promise of the Declaration is yet to be kept for all, especially in the United States, where fundamental freedoms are under strain amid rising gun violence and mass killings, which it has failed to tackle.
I now have a question for you. What are the factors that you consider while choosing your career path? Is it your passion, something that drives you? Is it the money? A mix of both? What about your gender? I know this is the 21st century and there should be no place for that question in this day and age, but sadly, it is the reality today. Let me tell you, for example, what's happening in Japan. It is difficult for women who are eyeing a career in research to be able to truly follow their heart and their passion. Why? Simply because of their gender. This Reuters report talks about a woman called Yuna Kato, a third-year student at one of Japan's top engineering universities. She has been eyeing a career in research, but her relatives have been trying to change her mind. They don't want her to be in the STEM field. What's that? Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But why not? Well, thanks to the notion that women in the STEM fields are not able to have a work-life balance. They won't be able to look after their families, their husbands. They want her to take up a non-STEM job. In fact, in Japan, this is a serious problem, and she's not alone. Many aspiring female engineers abort that mission because of this notion. And you know what the result is? According to that same report, in the IT field, Japan is looking at a shortfall of 790,000 workers by 2030. And why is that? Majorly because of the gross underrepresentation of women. In fact, this report details how grave the problem really is, with Japan finding itself at the last spot among the wealthy countries, with only 16% of female university students majoring in engineering, manufacturing, and construction. There's just one female scientist for every 7. And as far as the overall gender parity is concerned, the country's ranking plummeted to a record low this year. So what is Japan doing about this? Here's one way in which the country is trying to close this gap. For the academic year starting in 2024, around a dozen universities will be heeding the government's call, as per that report, to introduce a quota for female STEM students, joining several others. But you see, this is not a problem that's restricted to Japan. This is a global problem. According to UIS, or UNESCO Institute for Statistics data, less than 30% of the world's researchers are women. Less than 30%. In fact, there has been continued gender disparity in STEM fields. There are several factors at play here. Of course, the ingrained gender roles and sexism being among them. But all said and done, it's high time that this changed, because more women in the STEM fields, by the way, are not just a step in the right direction to be able to achieve gender equality, but it's also a positive for economic growth. Let me tell you how. For example, a 2017 study found that closing the gender gap in STEM education would have a positive impact when it comes to economic growth in the European Union. Ultimately, the onus lies on us, because this is the 21st century and we cannot be letting gender be a deciding factor for which career path to choose. For the first time in 63 years, Hollywood is facing a dual strike. Actors have joined writers in this historic strike. How is this impacting the industry? What is this dual strike all about? Our next report telling you.
We are the victims here.
The union representing television and film actors announced its members are on strike as of early Friday, joining the industry's writers who have been on picket lines since May and effectively shutting down Hollywood productions. SAG-AFTRA President Fran Drescher, former star of the Nanny TV show, called the studio's response to actors' demands for higher pay insulting and disrespectful.
I am shocked by the way the people that we have been in business with are treating us. I cannot believe it, quite frankly. How far apart we are on so many things. How they plead poverty, that they're losing money left and right when giving hundreds of millions of dollars to their CEOs. It is disgusting.
Both SAG-AFTRA, Hollywood's largest union representing 160,000 film and television actors, and the Writers Guild of America are demanding increases in base pay and residuals in the streaming TV era, plus assurances that their work will not be replaced by artificial intelligence.
It is a slippery slope into a very dangerous time and a real dystopia if big business corporations think that they can put human beings out of work and replace them with artificial intelligence. It's dangerous and it's without thinking or conscience.
The board of the Actors Union unanimously authorized the walkout after a deadline to reach a new contract expired Wednesday. Studios now face their first dual work stoppage in 63 years, forcing them to halt many productions across the United States and overseas, and delivering another blow to an industry struggling with changes to its business. The Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, the trade association that negotiates on behalf of Netflix, Walt Disney, and other production companies, said it was, quote, deeply disappointed that SAG-AFTRA has decided to walk away from negotiations, end quote. The group said it had offered the highest percentage increases in minimum pay levels in 35 years and substantial increases in pension and healthcare contribution caps, among other benefits. Hollywood stars like Matt Damon, appearing at a premiere of his upcoming film Oppenheimer, expressed support for the union.
Well, yeah, we wanted to come out and talk about it because we're really proud of it and we worked really hard on it, and we wanted to, everything was all set up, so we said, well, let's just do it, and then if they call a strike, we'll go home.
The actors' strike threatens to deepen the economic damage that has rippled through California and beyond, hitting caterers, prop suppliers, and others who rely on Hollywood productions for business.
They say the show must go on. However, that may not be the case, at least not anytime soon in Hollywood, as actors join writers to strike. For the first time in over 6 decades, 2 unions on our strike simultaneously, an event which is expected to bring Hollywood to a screeching halt. But it also could lead to a quicker end to Hollywood's labor war, considering the fact that many stars and celebrities have expressed solidarity with the strikers, saying that they will not go to work or appear on the red carpet. A strike by Hollywood's largest union, which encompasses 160,000 members in total, will essentially put a halt to all scripted film and TV production. Many of them were already in the waiting to be screened.
Let's now tell you what else made news around the world. Time for Gravitas Global Headlines.
Russia accuses the West of sponsoring nuclear terrorism after officials claim a Ukrainian drone had struck the western Russian town of Kurchatov, where a nuclear power station similar to the ill-fated Chernobyl plant is located. Ukraine's Air Force says it has downed 16 Iranian-made drones launched by Russian forces overnight, in the fourth consecutive night of aerial attacks by Moscow. Myanmar's junta chief hints the military may further extend a state of emergency and delay promised elections, saying greater efforts were needed to end unrest. Russian embassy in the United States reacts strongly to Pentagon's announcement that cluster bombs have been delivered to Ukraine. The Russian embassy calls United States action provocative. The United Nations says 165 million people were pushed into poverty because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the cost of living crisis, and the war in Ukraine. The United Nations has called for a pause in debt repayments for developing countries. Automaker Nissan announces the recall of 699,000 vehicles in Japan to address a range of defects that also affects more than 700,000 units overseas. Southern Europe is sweltering under a fierce heat wave. Officials warned that temperatures could hit record highs in the continent next week. This has also raised fears about the heat impact on human health, crops and animals. Weather alerts were in place across Spain's Canary Islands, Italy, Cyprus and Greece. Flames and thick smoke rose above scorched houses and burned cars in Croatia as wildfires broke out in the Balkan nation. The fire also engulfed one village. This comes as swaths of the Balkans dealt with temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius. The governing body of cycling has banned transgender women who have undergone male puberty from competing in the female category of competitive events. UCI says its actions are to protect the female class. Premier League side Arsenal have continued their summer spending spree by signing Dutch international Jurriën Timber. The centre-back joins the Gunners from Ajax in a $52 million deal. The 22-year-old is Arsenal's third signing of the summer.
On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. We are leaving you with Gravitas images. Thanks very much for watching. Have a good weekend.
Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole.